Hello and welcome. My name's Yvonne.
My name is Evan.
And we're just going to have a conversation. Our goal is to talk about some of the things that we're learning, some lessons, some of the things that have maybe even kicked our butt.
Yes.
Whether that's in life, in entrepreneurship, in leading a business, in even leading in ministry. So we've both gotten to wear different hats in different seasons and still are doing different things. So why don't we just start with an introduction of who we are and what we do.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
My name is Evan Hewitt, and I do a lot of things. I run RentCo, which is a company we buy, sell, and rent trailers. Me and Yvonne do that together. I also me and my wife lead our youth group at New Heart Church. We lead a couple of other teams there as well. I lead worship from time to time. We lead the First Impressions team on a Sunday morning. I serve a lot at our church. I've grown up in church and all those things. What else do I do? I don't know. I'm married, been married for 2.5 years. And gosh, I love business. I love serving. I don't know. That's at least part of the picture. My unrehearsed introduction.
Yeah, that's good. I think that covers most of the things, and we'll probably get into all of the other things at some point during these conversations. I'm Yvonne Karamoko, and I am married to the love of my life, Shelby Page. Shout out. We have 2 incredible kiddos, Yvonne II and Leonardo, and I get to build at RentCo as well. I also have a leadership and talent development company that I am working on, and I also go to New Heart Church. And shout out. Pastors Ben and Jess, you're incredible.
We love you guys.
And get to serve there as well. And so, as you can probably see, our lives are pretty intertwined. We get to do life together pretty closely. We see each other probably more than most. I think I see you more. I see you probably, you're the second person. Maybe fourth. You're the fourth person. Sorry, you went from second to fourth
so
very,
fast.
very quickly. Outside of my wife and kids, I think I see you the most.
Fair enough.
Of anybody else. So let's talk a little bit about RentCo.
Yeah.
Right? So we briefly mentioned it. RentCo is our bread and butter at the moment.
Yeah.
That's what we're both spending really most of our energy building. And so let's give them a little bit of a picture. What is RentCo? Why did you founded RentCo? You started RentCo.
Yeah.
And you've been running and operating it for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk a little bit about why RentCo? Why trailers? It's
really random. And you know what? I've heard the saying, water the trees that are fruitful. And that is literally how I've ended up here in the trailer industry, founding this company. I've always loved business. I've had a knack for it. I grew up without a ton of money. And so we're always looking for ways. I remember when I was like 10 or 12, like Thanksgiving, almost Thanksgiving now, would be out in the neighbors' trash cans. I'm sorry, my parents would not be happy that I'm sharing this, but I would be in the neighbors' trash cans getting aluminum cans out to bag them up and recycle them. Yeah. I cut grass at my house. I push mowed basically an acre for $2 a week, and would go to the flea market with my dad. My dad loved the flea market, and he taught me there to negotiate. I bought Hot Wheels and pocket knives were my 2 things at the flea market, and I never paid full price, y'all. Never once.
Yeah.
So you can see from a young age, I was learning these skills of negotiation, learning to love business, creating in life really was creating in me a work ethic. And so, you go through high school and I'm flipping things on Facebook Marketplace, boats, motorcycles, cars, trailers. I've got I'm selling firewood. You know, I even worked a couple jobs in there. But really, again, just seeing throughout years and years and after school and all these things, there was so much fruit in the trailer industry.
Right.
It was largely, and it's still largely overlooked. You know, it's largely overlooked by innovators. It's largely overlooked by, you know, people with a lot of capital to invest. And so there was just a hole there. And so buying and selling trailers on Facebook kind of turned into buying and selling more trailers and opening more avenues of buying and selling and even renting. And so, you know, kind of just slowly building, and we'll share even more stories just about how the Lord's hand has been on that, and just deals that I could not have done by myself, and doors that I could not have opened by myself, and support from people that I could not have lobbied myself, that have really just led to where we're at now. And you know, so that's kind of how we got into the business. But really, as it turns into more of what it turns into, I would point more to relationships and people. I mean, like Yvonne, I mean, dude, you've changed the whole game. And, you know, even other people that we have working with us, Ryan, you're probably going to see this. I mean, gosh, Ryan's changed the whole game too.
We are grateful for that.
But really, just powerful minds coming to this business has brought it to a place where it's growing, honestly, exploding. And I don't know if that fully answers what you're looking for, but yeah, I've watered the trees that were bearing fruit, and great people have come along. The Lord has blessed the business, and that's kind of how we're here.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's an element in that you talked about that I want to maybe spend a little bit more time on. So you've been hustling since you were a kid.
Hustling.
Yeah. There's this like, there's this determination or this different way of seeing things maybe, right? So you're going to these flea markets with your dad and you're like, here's what I'm going to get. Here's what I'm going to buy. And what do you think about when you're negotiating, right? So you've been negotiating deals really since you were a little kid, right? And I've watched you negotiate certain deals that I've just been like, I don't know how he's doing this. So talk a little bit about what's your mindset when you're negotiating, whether you're acquiring trailers or really anything else.
Yeah. Well, I think there are a lot smarter people that you could listen to talk about negotiation. There are books on it, all the things, but probably the two biggest pieces that I have in every negotiation is, one, I know that I'm making my money when I buy it, not when I sell it.
Right.
So if I don't know who I'm selling it to and or what it's going to sell for and how long it's going to take and all those things, that I'm not entering into that negotiation.
Okay. So
I have to know that, for example, on a trailer, I know what this is going to sell for, and I know who my target customer is, and if I have access to them. And so that gives me something to negotiate from. So if I know I can sell it for, 10 grand, that's okay. I need to get X% below that. That's my baseline. And the other thing, this is something I learned from a really, really wise, really wealthy individual, is you're negotiating with people, not products. You're negotiating with circumstance, not necessarily the end product. Right? I may be negotiating for a trailer or for a pocket knife, whatever. Really, there's a lot to be said about learning who you're negotiating with, understanding what do they value. Is it they value cash at the end of the deal, or in most cases, there are other things. Is it convenience? Is it time? Is it, in our business, is it that they don't have to do anything, that we would come pick it up, and all these things? There are so many more elements to a negotiation I don't think people realize than just purchase price, right? And condition of the item. And so I am paying attention to, one, who am I negotiating with? And two, what is it going to sell for at the end of the day? And once I have those two kind of pieces of information locked in, it gets a lot easier. A lot of this too is just experience. Like, if you don't know how to do something, negotiation being something, you just have to do it. Start somewhere, do it with something you can afford to negotiate on. Like I said, I traded Hot Wheels as a kid. I didn't start buying $10,000 trailers. I started buying $2 Hot Wheels.
Right.
So use that piece of info to your advantage. Start somewhere, and you can kind of learn from there.
That's really good. That's really good. I like the negotiation tips, but I also like what you said at the end of start somewhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times people look at opportunities, people look at dreams that they have, they look at the things or the places where they want to be one day.
Yep.
And they go, well, I don't have the experience selling $10,000 trailers.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means that I can't negotiate, or I don't have the experience. Fill in the blanks. It could be really anything. And that's probably one of the biggest lessons I would say that I've learned is all you have is all you need. Right?
Yeah.
That
Yep.
We often look at the things that we don't have and disqualify ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? We go, okay, well, if only I had this and that. And
yep.
And the reality is, I mean, even just from your story and, from some lived experience and, you look at other lives and you realize everything that you're going to need to take the first step, you already have.
Yeah.
Right? It's just deciding I'm not going to let what I don't have hold me back.
Right.
And I'm just going to get going. I'm going to get started.
Right.
Right. So I absolutely love that because for a lot of people, there's this element of, here are all the things, here are all the pieces that must be put together. And the reality is those pieces may never come together, right? You may start and realize that you hate this. You may start and realize that this isn't for you, but you won't find that out if you're just sitting there on the sidelines waiting to jump in and waiting to jump in and waiting to jump in. So I would say if you're watching this and you're maybe even thinking, I have this idea, I have this dream, I have this business, I have this book, I have this thing that I'm trying to go after, whether it's a degree or whatever it may be. If you're on the sidelines and you're thinking, when's the right time? I would say now's the right time. Get in, get started, get moving, because you'll get all the clarity as you get going. As you get moving, you find the clarity.
Yes. That's good. Yeah, I would say the most successful people are the first ones to do what is hard.
Right.
And honestly, we live in the world, you have so many resources, even like this, what we're doing right now. You have so many of these things to learn from, experts that are putting out content. There's so much content to consume. There's so much preparation that you can do. And it is easier. It wasn't always like this, but it is now easier to consume knowledge than it is to start. Right. And so that we get caught in this endless loop of like, well, let me consume this knowledge and let me consume that. Let me hear from this perspective, and this person has a different nuance, so let me hear from them. And we just get caught in this endless cycle. I've met so many people. I'm like, if you had tried as many things as you have read books, if you have tried as many things as you have watched reels, you would be so far along. And I think there is a healthy balance. Yes, let's learn. For sure. I mean, Yvonne's office is chock full of books. I mean, you can only probably see a half of them right here. But also, don't get caught in this weird space of like learning for nothing, because you've heard the quote, more businesses die from, indigestion than starvation. That goes farther than business. You're going to get overloaded with information and shut down before you starve of opportunity that you have, before you starve of value that you can create. And so if nothing else, let this video be the thing that makes you go, okay, I'm starting. Turn the video off. I don't care. Turn the video off.
Stop right here.
And make a step toward what you're doing.
That's so good.
Yeah.
That is so good. I love that. You don't need another book. You don't need another podcast. You don't need another reel.
You've had enough of them.
If you're watching this or something like this, you've probably been looking and learning and trying to figure something out. So just start. Just get moving. Just get going. I love that because there's a quote that says that knowledge doesn't become wisdom until it's applied to our lives, right? And we live in this information age, right? Where you do have access to everything and all sorts of knowledge, but it doesn't turn into wisdom until we apply it to our lives, until it changes our behavior. So that's really good. That's really good. Well, let's keep talking about Rentco. Let's talk about some lessons that we've learned, some things that are just shaping the way that we're building this company.
Lessons learned from Rentco. There is no way, just so you know, that we could explain all the lessons we've learned. I could not articulate all the lessons I've learned yet. And again, it goes back to you just learn so much by doing. But this is our attempt, our very quick attempt at this is just some things we've learned. The first thing I wrote down when you talk about lessons learned from building Rentco, do not count your eggs before they hatch. You've heard that before probably, but the amount of times that I have counted on specific sales, got a deposit, it's sold, spend that money. Or, this idea is going to work. I know this because this person said they were going to buy. I mean, gosh, how many people have, when I was starting the business, hey, I'm going to refer you to my 8 friends if you give me a discount. Okay, count those eggs. I got 8 people that are going to rent from me later on. All these things, don't count your eggs before they hatch. You can only count on the business that you have received. You can only count on the revenue that has already come in. So with this, what happens if you start counting eggs before they hatch is you have a really unstable foundation. And nobody can join you on an unstable foundation. If the foundation of your company is moving, you're probably the only one who can balance on top of it. So you try to bring in someone that's awesome, like Yvonne, and okay, come help me do this. But you're counting eggs before you hatch. Well, something is going to happen. You're not going to get paid one week, and you're going to say, okay, well, crap, I can't do this. Or the vision is going to shift, and you're going to be confused and not know how to contribute, right? And so it's best for everyone if you just count the eggs that have already hatched.
That's really good. And there's a lot of conversation. I mean, we have financial meetings once a week, right? And in that, we're looking at 2 things. We're looking at where's the business currently at, how are we performing, but there's an element of projections, right? Because we're looking at where do we need to be, where are we going, what does our history tell us about where we could go? What do the numbers tell us about, what's available? So there's almost this duality, right? So on one hand, you don't want to count your eggs before they hatch, but maybe speak a little bit about how should we then look at projections?
Well, and I think you should speak on it too, but I would say that's a great point. And you can project, and you want to project because you don't want to make moves that only benefit today. We've talked about how many times have we talked about we would love to spend all of our time making moves. You even hear about working on versus working in your business. I want to work on my business all the time. I want to be setting us up toward growth all the time. That's all I want to do. Making moves that will behoove us 2 years from now when, maybe our projections are true and we're bringing in triple what we're bringing in now. But the truth is you've got to do both because if I'm never working in my business as the leader, then there are things that are probably going wrong and not working as efficiently as they need to. But also, if you're only working in it, if you're only counting on the eggs that have hatched, and maybe I'm going back on what I just said, but then you're probably missing some big opportunities. And you're probably missing out on something that, little things you can do today that will drastically impact tomorrow. I don't think you can only look at either one. I think it's really important to look at both. Next lesson learned from Rentco is business is personal.
Business is personal.
And if you believe otherwise or are saying otherwise, I would petition that you're believing something that's not true. Because time after time, I have seen that the way you operate in business, at your business, dealing with people in a business setting is coming from your heart, just like it would when you're not at business.
Right.
I have made some of my best friends in business. When we didn't meet on a personal level, we didn't meet at church, we didn't meet, out in the city.
Right.
We met through business,
right.
and we got to learn who each other were and see how we operated, and really collaborate and solve problems in the pressure cooker that is business.
Right.
And so business became personal in that sense. I've also lost friends in a business setting.
That's real.
I have seen things in people, and people have seen things in me because of business that, ended friendships, because business is personal. And when you're hurt by someone in business, it doesn't feel like, oh, that was business. That makes sense.
Right.
Like, it hurts. Even if you can see that, wow, that made sense on a business perspective. If it's done without the personal person-to-person side involved, if you don't handle a person correctly, or a person doesn't handle you correctly, it feels personal, because it is. There's a show on Apple TV called Severance.
Yes.
Me and Shay love that show. Waiting for the next season to come out soon. But in that show, there is, when you go into work, you leave behind all your memory and knowledge of the person that you are outside of work. And when you leave work, you leave behind all of your memory and knowledge of what happened at work and who you are at work. And in that setting, business is business, because you have no idea who you are in there. And, those are decisions you're making only with the frame of understanding that you have in business. But even in that situation, you're making decisions based on who you are as a personal individual.
Right.
And so there is really no circumstance, there's no way to slice it, that business isn't personal. But listen, that is for better and for worse. Right. That means that when you don't have to compartmentalize your life in a way that what I do in business and who I am in business and what I learn while I'm at work and building this thing, it is applicable to who you are everywhere else. Right. In my case, as a husband, right? Or a leader at church, or a friend, right? It's applicable everywhere. So nothing is wasted. Also, don't cut yourself any slack, right? In the way that you are dealing with people, because ultimately, we're in business to love people. And if you're, of course we complete goals and we do all the things, but if the whole point, right, is that I want to love people better. Right. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better leader. I want to be more generous. Right. And so if I'm living under this weird idea that what I do in business doesn't apply to who I actually am, or how I treat someone that works for me or leads with me isn't going to apply to who they are, then I'm going to miss all that. Right. And in my opinion, if I miss all that, then what I'm doing is for naught. Right. So business is personal.
It is. And that was one of the hardest things for me to learn as a young entrepreneur, was that idea of business is not personal. It's just business. And I remember thinking, well, I would look at my dad, I would look at, family friends, I would look at uncles, I would look at mentors, and I would go, okay, they seem to do business with people that they like, with people that they trust, with people that they want to be around. So how can it not be personal? Yeah. Right? And I think, and this is just my thought, I think the person who came up with the idea, this is just a scenario that I made up in my head, but I think the person that came up with the idea had maybe a business relationship or a supplier or someone that they had to have a transactional relationship with for the health of their business, for the health of their role, that maybe they didn't like, that maybe they didn't, particularly enjoy, but told themselves, I have to do this because business is business. It's not personal. However I feel about them personally shouldn't come into the equation. And I know that that's a thing for, many businesses, many corporations, many organizations, where they might go, okay, well, you guys are saying that business isn't personal, right? But the reality is, here's the flip side of it. And I think that person created it. Let me finish that thought. I think that person created it because they didn't like the personal aspect or elements of that other person, right? And so you create this mindset of, well, it's not personal, it's just business. And what I would submit to that is, even the relationships that you have that are business relationships that you go, I probably would not enjoy hanging out with this person, or I don't love their personality that much, and I just have to do this just for the sake of doing this. Here's what I would submit. If you found someone else that you liked, that you trusted, that had a better character than them, you would move your business over to that person, right? Because at the moment, it's maybe just transactional, but we want to do business with people we like, with people we trust, with people that we enjoy being around, right? And I think of that, personally, but then I also think of that, as an employer, right? That there are people, that everyone that shows up to work on a regular basis is showing up to work with their whole selves.
Yeah.
That they are not leaving any elements, any parts of who they are. They show up to work. We all do. We all show up to work with our goals, our aspirations, our mindsets, our problems, our cares, our worries, whatever it is. We show up as a whole person.
Yes.
And, there's no way to actually separate the person from the objective that they are helping the business reach, right? That just because, I think even here in the United States, or really everywhere, we've looked at people that work within an organizations as cogs within wheels, right?
Yeah.
We've looked at people from a business standpoint from this perspective of, you show up, here's what you're responsible for, here are your tasks, here are your deliverables. And we've tried to put people into just that box. And so we haven't cared enough to go, okay, well, what's going on in Jordan's life?
Yeah.
What is going on in John's life? What is going on in Ryan's life, right? We've just gone, okay, what is that individual supposed to do for the business? Are they doing it? And if they're doing it, we haven't cared enough about people to take it beyond that. And I think there's a shift, right? There's a shift happening. And I think that, I don't even think it's happening. I think it has happened, where people are more drawn to leaders that aren't just caring about what they do, but to leaders that care about who they are.
Yes.
And that's the kind of leader we all aspire to be, right? The kind of leader that doesn't just look at the P&L and go, okay, here's what we need to make this much profit. The kind of leader that goes, what is happening in so-and-so's marriage? How can I add value to so-and-so's kids? How, and I believe that shift has to happen, right?
Yes.
Because people are drawn to that kind of leadership, one, but I don't think you can call yourself an effective leader, a good leader, or even a great leader if you don't care about the people that are in your organization, that are in your business. Because, right, at the end of it all, we're just stewarding people.
Yeah.
Right? There's business things that we do. There are elements of providing value, of providing services that we do, but we can't do it without people. We cannot do it without people. And so business is very personal.
Very personal.
It is very personal, and we have to start looking at it that way if we're going to have the kind of impact on, whether it's the lives of the people we get to steward or even our own life, right? Because when I start looking at business as something that is personal, then I feel the freedom to go, I'm going to show up to work as my whole self, as who I am, authentically me. And what I would hope is that I would show up in that way, and that I can show up to work and be that and be welcomed and valued for who I am.
Yeah.
I think at the core, that's what we're all looking for.
That's good.
We're looking to work in places and organizations for businesses that have those two elements, that give us the permission to show up as we are and that accept us as we are. I think if you can combine those two things, you have a team of people that will follow you to the ends of the earth. I think you have a team of people that feel that they can contribute as much as possible.
Yes.
Because once we're accepted, then we're able to innovate.
Yes.
Once we're accepted, then we're able to push through challenges.
Yeah.
Once we're accepted, then we're able to take ownership at a different level. because I know that I'm not accepted just because of what I do here. I'm accepted because of what I do here and because of who I am.
Gold. I want to reemphasize something you said, was that if you do not care about the people you are leading, you are not a good leader.
Yeah, you are not.
And that's going to be hard for some people.
Yeah, but it's the truth.
But it is the straight up truth. You can't possibly lead people well if you don't care about them. And that's something I think that has set Rentco apart. In the first few weeks, months, whatever, that you were on the team, I asked you one day, about just what have you observed about Rentco? And I'll never forget, you said, I feel like I can bring myself here. Mm-hmm. And that was the biggest compliment. It was the biggest compliment that you could have given, because, man, I don't want to lead a company that only allows room for one type of person, right, or one type of skill, or one type of anything, right? Because as soon as you do that, and this isn't an intentional decision, it's actually an unintentional decision to have an environment that only accepts certain things. Right. But if you have that, you will choke out innovation. Right. You will choke out potential. You will choke out potential not only for your business, but for the people inside of it. Right. And one of the things I love so much about our business, and if you follow our social media, you'll get to see some of the people that are on the team. The diversity is crazy. Right. And I'm not just talking about skin color here. I'm talking about like the backgrounds and the experiences, mm-hmm, and even the desires, right, and like goals of the people on our team. Right. It's a beautiful thing. And that is something that has separated us from the other people in our industry, right? You can find a type of person that you would think, this type of person works in this industry. You can plug this into the trailer industry. You can plug this into the fashion industry. You can plug this into anything. This type of person is going to do better in this industry than other people. Right. And I love that our company is breaking that stigma, right? There are, honestly, I mean, you wouldn't expect people with a turtleneck, or you wouldn't expect people that even are dressed like us to work in trailers. Right. You're expecting boots. Right. You're expecting hats, right? You're expecting accents. And I love that we've created an environment that, sure, yeah, there's that. There are people like that work for us. But there are also people with other ways of thinking and other backgrounds and other desires. And that has allowed us to be more than the industry standard. Right. That has allowed us to innovate. That has allowed us to attract talent and skills that are beyond us. And so we're so much better for it. Yeah.
And you've modeled that very well. I will say that. The reason why I was able to say what I said when I started is because I saw that in the environment that you had created. And I really believe that is the role of every leader. That is at least one of the roles of every leader, is to create an environment where people from different backgrounds, from different ethnicities, with different aspirations, with different goals, can show up and contribute towards a team winning as they are.
Yeah.
Right. I think, I have a professor that talks a lot about this idea of diversity from this perspective of a mosaic. That we all have all of these different elements and colors, and we bring it all together to make the masterpiece, right? And I really believe that's what we get to have when we create spaces where people feel like they are welcome, where people feel like they are accepted, where people feel like they can thrive. Yep. And I truly believe that any business or any leader that chooses to make that an intentional part of how they're building their business will always attract people from all backgrounds, will always attract people with all kinds of aspirations. And I believe we'll probably be able to do better than the average business owner. I don't have any empirical studies or anything like that to describe it. But if you look at even some of the reasons why people choose to stay at a job, or the reason why certain, workplaces have very high turnover, it often goes back down to how they're being led, who their leader is, and many times It's the elements that are personal, the elements that aren't, based on objectives. And, that happens. But it's the elements that are personal that are often lacking from leaders, taking the time to care for the people, taking the time to understand what is happening in their world, taking the time to even correlate business objectives with their own personal objectives.
And we're probably camping on this topic, but I think it's good. The other side of this that is so awesome is that when you work on your personal, you work on your business.
Right.
And this is so interesting. I saw so much more out of my business when I started consistently working out. When I made the decision to work on my body,
right.
I saw more output from my business when I fully understood for the first time that my marriage comes first, right? When I started taking care of my personal, the output, which is my business, what I was creating, what I had my hands on, began to transform.
Right.
And of course, as a leader, you get to set precedents for the rest of your team,
right?
Right? But we do things for the personal that don't actually benefit the business directly,
right.
that we know will benefit the business.
Right.
We do things like send people on date nights. I don't have to know, right, your spouse at all to send you on a date night, right? I don't have to know your family to give you a day off and say, go spend time with your family, right? Because I know that as I allow space for the people I lead to work on their personal, what they put out in the business is going to grow, right? So it's all interconnected. Not only are we doing the people we lead a disservice by separating business and personal, we're also missing opportunities, right? If we don't remember that it all works together.
Right.
So the next lesson we have learned from Redco that we wrote down is greed kills. Greed kills. You have to share.
Yep.
There's an old saying, you can have all of nothing or a little bit of something.
Right.
So the moment that you try to wrap your arms tightly around what you feel you are entitled to or what you feel you have earned is the moment that you close yourself off to growth. Right? What starts to look at like protection in the beginning actually can lead to the starvation of what you want to see. And so you've got to share. You've got to give people what's fair and even beyond that, right? There are times, many times as business owner that I get nothing at the end of the deal. People don't realize that. But especially in the beginning of the business, everyone in my company makes more money than I do. Everybody. Because I understand that you have to be generous. You have to share. You have to lead open-handedly in order for nutrients to get to what you're growing. Now, that's not forever. No. But the people I work with love to work with me. Right? The people we do business, our suppliers, right? Are the people that find trailers for us, the people that buy trailers or rent trailers on the regular. We do business with them generously, and they love to do business with us because I learned early on that greed kills. So if you find something or someone that is worth giving to, do it. You're doing yourself a disservice if you're allowing greed to be a part of your process.
Yeah, that's really good. A lot of times I like to think about, so I love the point you just made. I like to think about, how do we get to the place where we believe that by holding on to everything, that's how we win? Because it's very easy for any one of us to find ourselves there. So I don't know, as I think through things, I often think about, okay, if it's a destination that many people find themselves at, what is the path that leads to that? Because if you can identify what leads to it, then, I don't think any of us are immune. This is a saying that I've said for, I don't even know how long, but I believe that under the right circumstances, anyone is capable of anything, good or bad.
True.
And so we have to look at the behaviors we have to look at our motivations, our behaviors with that perspective of, okay, what are the safeguards that I can put around myself to make sure that I don't end up in destinations that I don't want to be in, right? Because, you know, it's like what you just said. If greed kills, why are so many people there? Right? What is the lie that we believe that gets us to buy into that, right? And I think one of them would probably have to be a scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
Right? That there isn't enough.
Yes.
There isn't enough for me.
Yeah.
I have to look out for me.
Yes.
If I don't look out for me, nobody will.
Yes.
There isn't more out there to be made. There isn't more out there to be done. There isn't more value to be created. And I think that mindset is what leads to greed, because then we go, okay, well, if that's the case, then I need 100% of everything. I need 100% of this business. I need 100% of that business. I need 100% of, you know what I mean? And I believe that, at least I've identified that as one of the reasons why I can end up there.
Yeah.
Right. And so then I often, you know, have to go, okay, there is more. There is plenty.
There's plenty.
Especially, you know, you live in a country like the United States where there is a ton of opportunity. Right?
There is.
And if you cannot find opportunity, then you're not looking. Right? And I don't even believe it's just the US anymore. I think as technology has allowed us to go beyond borders, I think anywhere in the world there's immense opportunity to add value, to create, to show up.
Yeah.
And as long as we have that mindset that there is more, then we don't have to go, oh, well, there isn't enough. But you have to break the mindset of there isn't enough.
Yeah.
If you're going to be someone that is generously giving.
Yeah.
Whether that's financial, whether that's time, whether that's resources, whatever it is, we become, you know, one of my favorite principles comes from the Bible, but I really believe it's a principle of life, that it is more blessed to give than it is to receive.
Yes.
That the joy that you have in, you know, I'm going to use a very basic example, like giving a gift to a child on Christmas morning. I watched my son open gifts for the very first time last Christmas. And in the moment that he was opening those gifts, first of all, I'm going to give this background. We gave him I think it was an orange to open that we wrapped, and he opened it and he was just so happy. He was so excited. And that reminded me that innately it's not about the fact that someone bought us something expensive. It's actually about the fact that someone thought about us enough to get us something. And I saw that in him. Obviously, as you know, we get older, we have different wants and stuff. But I think at the core, you know, that's a little bit of where we are. But I watched him open all the gifts, all the toys, all of the, you know what I wasn't thinking about? I wasn't thinking about how much money did we have to spend. I wasn't thinking about, man, where are my gifts? What am I opening? I really wasn't thinking about any of those things. I was just happy to watch him enjoy what we had worked to provide for him.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And I think we can experience, because I have experienced that joy in other areas of life, right? Whether it's with friends, whether it's with family, that as you give and you get to watch someone experience what you've given them, whether it's your time, whether it's resources, whether it's that should fuel us. That should give us joy. That should, you know, I'm going to go off on a tangent here because it's reminding me of this idea that your gifts and your talents are not for you. Right? That we were actually created to be giving.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
That no matter who you are, your gifts and your talents are actually for everyone else.
Whew. That is beautiful.
Right? But that's the way we're created and designed.
Yeah.
That on from the most successful to the least successful, right? It's in creating and giving value.
Yes.
That we build wealth.
Wow.
Right?
Yep.
That no matter how great of a leader you are, worship leader, pastor, that you do not eat the fruit of your gifts and talents.
Come on.
We do.
Come on.
The people in your life do.
Right.
Right. And that's the way our lives are created. That's the way that the whole world functions. If you really think about it, that, if you look at, out front, we have an apple tree. And that apple tree never gets to enjoy the apples that it produces.
Yeah.
But it is valuable because it produces apples.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I whenever I think about that, I think differently about what it is to live, what it is to give.
Yeah.
Because if that's true, and since that's true, I should be looking to live my life in a way that I'm giving as much as possible.
Gosh.
Right? That in every single way, I need to look at how do I give? Because that is where I find what I was created to be, what I was created to do, right? That if that's the mindset we adopt, I truly believe that is the best way to live. That's the best way to operate a business. That's the best way to be a husband. That's the best way to be a father. That I'm constantly looking for ways to give of myself, right? Because that's what I was designed to do. And you can look at it from very basic principles all the way to complex principles. If you start looking at leadership and running a company and providing value that way, or even just the most simplest of things as a husband, as a father, as an individual. Yeah. That for all of us, our gifts, talents, and abilities are meant to create value for other people. And so we should be looking to give on a regular basis.
And what I was thinking as you said that, and I think we've got to do a better job at understanding, is that tree is not fueled by its own fruit anyway. Mm-hmm. And it's all like, it doesn't need it. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine if it spent its energy trying to collect its own fruit?
Right.
One, it wouldn't benefit.
Right.
Right. And two, all of the things in the ecosystem surrounding it that are supposed to be able to be nourished by its fruit are now robbed.
Right.
And so actually it robs itself of what it needs by putting restrictions on who and what around them, like who it's being generous to.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because the apple tree doesn't need its apples, but it needs the squirrels.
Right.
The apple tree doesn't need its apples, but it needs healthy soil, right? It needs the ecosystem around it. And so we are cutting ourselves off from nutrition when we start being too calculated about who and how generous we are to, right? Yeah. And so maybe if we took some restriction away and took some thought away from how generous am I going to be? Am I getting ripped off? Right? And we just started putting it on, how do I provide as much value as possible? Right? Then I think that we would see a better world. We would see stronger family units. We would see stronger organizations. We would see stronger community and relationship. Then we begin to be fed by those things. But it all starts with giving and not receiving. That's beautiful. Greed kills.
Greed definitely kills. And I'll say one last thing on it that I heard Pastor Ben say in one of his sermons.
This is going to be fire. Take your notes out.
He said, the best relationships are not give and take. Society teaches us that if I give 50 and you give 50, we have 100.
Yes.
Right? And the math makes sense. But it actually doesn't work out that way.
Yeah.
Right? That the actual answer is, I'm going to give 100 and you're going to give 100.
Yep.
Right? Because then we each receive 100 instead of each receiving 50.
Yeah.
Right? There's no withholding of myself my abilities, my talents
Yeah.
from you in the same way that there isn't that from the other person, right? So instead of 50-50 that yields to 100, you actually have two individuals that actually get 100 and 100. And I think that works for friendships, siblings, marriage, that we shouldn't be looking at, okay, what is the least I can give to get? But we should actually be looking at what is the most I can give. And that's it, right? Because if we trust that I can give 100
this is good.
and you will give 100,
this is good.
then I don't have to think about, well, what am I going to get?
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to get?
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to get? And it takes the focus off of us and it puts the focus on, okay, how can I create value?
Yep. That's strong. I love this conversation. There's another lesson that we've learned building this. And it is, this too shall pass. This
That
too
it
shall pass.
That it shall.
The lowest low, it will pass.
Right.
It can't possibly go on forever.
Right.
And the highest high will pass. It can't go forever. So we don't make our home in the valley. We don't make our home on the mountaintop. We don't make our home in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
We lead and live with the understanding that this is not forever. Right? And so, yeah, I would love, Yvonne, to know, talking about this too shall pass, about the time when you first jumped on, things went tragically wrong. You got an offer. You tell the story. I don't want to summarize. I don't want to take any of your fire away. So tell us.
Yeah, no, it it's tied even to another lesson, right? That resilience is what it takes if you're going to make it, right? That, a lot of times we start things, whether it's businesses, relationships, programs, projects, whatever, and we don't account for the fact that there will be bad days. We don't account for the fact that there will be bad weeks, bad months. And it can even happen that there will be bad years.
Yeah.
We don't account for those. We look at all of the positive. We look at all the benefits. And I think it's great because none of us would start anything if we didn't look at all the positives and all the benefits. Right. But yeah, so right before I came on, I had applied for a job, had gone through the process, gone through 2 interview rounds. And at the end of those rounds, based on my conversations, was expecting an offer anytime. 6 months went by and they just ghosted me. Never heard back from them.
Yeah.
And, you start to, have those thoughts of, okay, well, what went wrong? What happened there? To be ghosting people. Let me just say this. Can we stop ghosting people?
Gosh, please.
Can we just own whatever the conversation that needs to be had and just move forward? It will give everyone just the ability to move forward in life.
Yes.
So let's just stop ghosting people.
Yes.
But yeah, they ghosted me. And never heard back from them. And obviously started at RentGo.
Yep.
And a few months into that, we had some of our worst months ever.
The worst months ever.
Yeah. And things were tough. And, you start asking yourself a lot of questions of, okay, what's happening? What do I need to do? Am I doing something wrong? What do I need to change?
Yes.
And as we were in the midst of that, I think the very week we were, at the lowest of lows, right? Where you were going on a trip. We had just let go of an employee. Another employee had told us that, they didn't feel like this was a fit and they quit on the spot and left.
Which we thought that employee would never leave.
Right.
So that was like a huge hit.
Yeah. Or at least not then.
Yeah.
And it was a wild time. But I remember having the thought of what do I need to do? What do I need to do? What do I need to do?
Yeah.
Because we were doing everything that we could operationally on the business side, just we weren't getting the same results.
Yeah.
And I get this call from the same company, and they, the recruiter lady's like, "Hey, we know it's been a while, but we're at the place where we'd love to offer you the job. And I remember thinking, 6 months later is when you want to offer me this job? That is wild. It's just, if you're in the job market, if you're in the job search and you've been ghosted, honestly, all hope isn't gone. I hope that you don't hear back 6 months from now, but it can happen.
Why is it allowed now?
I don't know.
That is a common experience.
I don't know what is happening, but that is a common experience. People are talking about that all the time. And so as she, was saying that, I told her, I said, well, I'm not at a place where I'm looking for a role anymore. But thanks for reaching out. And after that, I had a conversation with my wife, and, we're talking through it. And I, just said to her, I was like, well, maybe I can take this role because it's a remote job. Maybe I can take this role and still get to build at Renco without taking anything out of the company. And that was the thought that I had. I thought legitimately this actually might be a great open door and an opportunity to get to still do this together.
Yeah.
But immediately I felt like it was a distraction. I felt like it wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. I felt like just because things were hard didn't mean I needed to look for a way out. And I wasn't even so much looking for a way out as in leaving, but it's very easy to start looking outside of what you have, where you are, when things don't go well.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. It is.
You can talk about it as, being creative or finding creative ways to overcome. But our natural inclination oftentimes when things don't go right is to look outside.
Jump ship.
Right? And to go, okay, well, things aren't going well here. I'm going to get out.
Yep.
And I think, one of the things that we were both on the same page on, in that time was we are with the ship. We are with the ship.
Mm-hmm.
We are not going to jump off the ship. If it's going down, we're going down with it.
Yep.
And I think,
which is how you're a captain, by the way.
Yeah.
You're kidding yourself if you think you're some crazy leader guy or girl, but you're not willing to go down with the ship.
Yeah.
You're not leading the ship.
Right.
Whoever's going down with it is leading the ship.
Right. Yeah. And it took that.
Yeah.
Right. It took that to get to the other side. Right.
Yeah.
Because in that moment, we could have very easily decided, okay, well, maybe we need to look at a different opportunity. Maybe we need to look at a different industry.
It would have made sense.
Yeah, it
would have literally made sense.
Yeah, and we've even, had a lot of conversations about other business things that we want to do together. And so it could have very well been, okay, well, what can we do together next?
Yeah,
what can
peace out.
And I think people get into, trouble whenever they're not willing to get through the hard times.
Yeah.
Or even whenever they don't realize that there will be hard days.
Yeah.
That no one is guaranteed sunshine and 78 degrees all the time. That's my preferred weather.
I'm more of a 72 guy.
72, okay. Well, that's
unless we're on a bike.
That's why I wear a sweater when I go to your house, because we're not.
It's true.
I'm a warm-blooded African. And so I need more heat. I don't know where that comes from. But, for anyone starting or building anything worthwhile, it's that reminder, right? That it rains on the just, it rains on the unjust. So it's not a matter of whether or not it's going to rain. It's a matter of when it rains.
Yeah.
And if you have the mindset of when it rains, I'm going to get my umbrella out and I'm going to keep walking. I'm going to keep moving forward. Yeah. If I don't have an umbrella, I'm going to get wet. I'm going to take it as nature's way of giving me a free shower. I'm going to look at it in such a way that I know that the rain won't be there forever, right? Because I want you to talk about where we're at now, right? Because now we're on the other side of it, and we are experiencing some of the best months that we have ever had that look...
It's unreal.
They look planets away from where we were, but they're also the best that we've ever done as a company, right? So talk a little bit about, being on the other side of it now and how you view those hard days.
Well, and again, the key lesson is this too shall pass.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so we're understanding in that moment that you're talking about, where our days were numbered and our feelings were hurt and shots were coming from everywhere.
Right.
We're looking at that and we're applying the same logic there as we are here.
Right.
Understanding that 3 months in a row we've broken sales records. Right. Understanding that our business is now in a different spot, right, than it was. But this too shall pass. So I'm not building a house here.
Right.
I'm not making calls just practically. I'm not going out just because we could afford to right now and buying new trucks. Right. I'm not hiring people flagrantly because I refuse to react only on what I see now, knowing that this too shall pass.
Right.
And so in the mountaintop, right, this is just how you got to understand. In the mountaintop, I'm doing two things. I'm planning, right, and understanding with wisdom that this too shall pass. Also, this is the harder one for me. I'm remembering to celebrate. I'm remembering to take time with my team, with myself, right, and thank God, right, and really celebrate and thank the people that have contributed, right, because it matters. These moments. You talk about capturing momentum. You talk about really you because you can be in a place where you just rush past victories and defeats, right? And this can happen when you're really good at survival, because like you talk about, just the body, right? If you're used to not eating a lot, your stomach shrinks,
right.
And so this can help you in scarcity, right? You are not hungry as much, and you don't, and your body learns to use less. But if you have a lot, now you're unable to capture what you have, right? You don't have the capacity to store food or fat for the next season. So we have to be careful as people and as an organization. We're not going to rush through the times of plenty, because that does a disservice to everybody who worked for them. It protects us emotionally, but beyond that, it does a disservice to our organization. And so we take time to celebrate, and we are just as diligent about note-taking, about conversation, about adapting, learning from our current situation, what's working, what's not. But we ain't building a house here. This isn't where we're going to live. It's not going to be like this forever. And knowing that is what's going to keep us from quitting when it's not. This too shall pass.
That's so good. That's so good. And I think that's such a healthy perspective to grow a business, but I think also even just to grow as an individual.
Everything.
That this too shall pass, that the hard moments won't be there forever, and the good moments also won't be there forever. And I think that it helps to frame our perspective. It helps to frame what we look at and how we look at it.
Yeah.
Right? Because even now, our perspective is informed, but we're still making decisions that are best for the business.
Yeah.
Right? We're not going out, like you said, and frivolously spending and doing things just because we have them. Right? We're still being strategic. We're still and I think it's good to have both. I really believe that it's good to have the good days and it's good to have the hard days. Because you wouldn't celebrate unless you had something worth celebrating.
Yeah.
Right? You wouldn't celebrate unless you had moments where we couldn't celebrate.
Yeah.
Right? And I think, it's so important. It's so important to pause and go, because here's what I think a lot of times. Okay, well, we're doing really well right now, and that's how we should be doing. Right? This is a personal thing. I will say, I often forego the celebrations because I go, this is what should be happening.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So now we're doing what we should be doing. So let's keep doing that.
The goalpost moves.
Right. Yeah. Right. And so I love that. I love that thought of take time, like take moments, make it an intentional thing to celebrate the wins.
Yeah. And on the flip, mourn the losses.
Right.
Like when we were in that season, we we're not going to sit here and just like bathe in our sorrows.
Right.
But it's important to recognize with the team, with each other, with yourself that, hey, this is a loss.
Right.
This sucks.
Right.
This is not what we thought was happening.
Right.
Because it's important to be rooted in reality. But then, just like we're not building here, we're not building there.
Right.
So mourn in the hard times, celebrating the good times, but have the wisdom. This too shall pass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It shall pass, so keep moving.
Keep moving.
Keep moving forward. I love that.
Yeah. That would probably be the lessons.
Yeah.
That's not all of them, but it's a lot of them. The ones that we're going to share today. Those are some of the lessons, and I'm going to recap. Don't count your eggs before they hatch. Also, do count your eggs before they hatch.
Right.
Business is personal.
Yep.
Greed kills.
Yep.
This too shall pass.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. And we'll continue to have these conversations.
Yeah.
Just talking about the things we've learned, the things we're growing in, the things that are happening, the valleys and, the mountaintops. So we are grateful for you tuning in. We're just going to have this moment happening.
Yes, you're in the video, Y2K.
My son just walked into the office and we are wrapping up this conversation. So if you enjoyed the conversation, share it with someone. And we hope that it adds value. We'll have more of these conversations.
Yes, we will.
As we continue to grow and build as individuals, but also the things that the Lord has put in our hands to steward.
All of it.
Yeah.
All of it. Okay. We'll see you guys later.